We had done a few of the sentences last time. We will run through them again quickly and then proceed further. This is a very significant section in the sense that it gives you the spiritual metaphysics of how from the higher hemisphere the work in the lower hemisphere started. How from the transcendent the cosmic manifestation began. We have got the transcendent, now begins the cosmic manifestation. So that way the entire sequence, the entire process which is being described here is something absolutely unique, and such details are not available anywhere in the spiritual scriptures at all. So as you say, that is really the greatness of Savitri, and one really starts wondering, admiring how much pain he has taken to go into all these details, every small minute aspect of this creation one by one. Not that some of these things are not available in the life divine, but still I will say the minutiae which you have got here in Savitri, you would not find even in life divine to that extent, because in life divine he has taken a certain stand for presentation to a kind of an enlightened intellectual. So he has put a sort of a limit on that. How much an enlightened intellectual can grasp, that limitation is completely gone in Savitri. He is free and he can now describe in his own way. You understand, don't understand, it doesn't care, but this is what it is. So Savitri gives him absolute freedom of expression and setting it him. So passing through clarity to an unseen light, large lucid realms of mind from stillness shone, lucent realms of mind. Well, this is a broad introduction of what is now going to happen in the cosmic manifestation. The highest part of cosmic manifestation is, of course, the overmind, and therefore they are lucent realms of mind, overmind, lucent realms of mind, from stillness shone, from above. So what you see here, in fact, let us read the second sentence again. But first he met a silver grey expanse. He, of course, Ashwapati, the explorer, the yogi himself, where day and night had wedded and were one. It was a tract of dim, shifting rays, parting like sentient flow from thoughts self-poised, where day and night had wedded and were one. He says, and were one. Now, wedding does not necessarily mean that they are one. Wedding does not necessarily mean that they are one. But here, that wedding brings a oneness also, you see, which is something higher, superior, nobler, beautiful also, you see. And practically a monosyllabic line, day, the transcendent, night, the lower hemisphere now beginning. So, what we have in the traditional description is parardha, the transcendental parardha, and aparardha, the higher hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. The higher hemisphere of light, beauty, joy, truth, love, sweetness, all those transcendental qualities are there. In the higher hemisphere, parardha, where para, prakriti, superior nature was here. The lower hemisphere, aparardha, which is not parardha, aparardha, where the lower nature works. So here the wedding is between the parardha, the upper hemisphere, and the lower hemisphere, aparardha. Day and night. Night stands for basically aparardha, starting from inconscious all the way up to overmind. That is the huge, big hemisphere standing below, and that is why it is called the cosmic manifestation. It is entering into the cosmic manifestation. But first he met a silver grey expanse. Now, what does he see first? He sees our mind. First, from above, when he is coming down, what he sees our mind. Now, we have got the upper hemisphere, we have got the lower hemisphere. The transition which takes place between these two looks as if this is a kind of a sphere which is just cut like that. Which is just cut like that, you see. But to a certain extent, Sri Aurobindo is describing now all the worlds of lower mind, that is over mind, intuition, revelation, all these lower, illumined mind, higher mind, these worlds are there below completely, you see. Now, this text of Savitri was done by Sri Aurobindo many times. The first part of Savitri, he wrote and rewrote, adding this feature, that feature, all the details, giving all small little details of each and every aspect. And he kind of completed that thing by 1944. 1944. The first part of Savitri, in that sense, was completely in his own handwriting. In his own handwriting, he completed the whole thing, you see. Of course, he wrote the final draft in his own handwriting in 2 columns. A4 sheet, half year he was writing like that, because in those days they were short of paper, you see. So he was writing in 2 columns like that, you see. And then, in his own handwriting, in his own manuscript. Then later on, that was copied in a ledger by Nirodharan. The text as was written by Sri Aurobindo. Then that ledger script was again read out to Sri Aurobindo, and he has added this and that and whatnot like that in the process of revision. It went to the typist, again the typescripts were read out, added this, that, like that. So that is how the first part was kind of completed. The point which I am trying to see this one is, it looks as if there is a kind of an abrupt division between the transcendent and the cosmic. The spear is just cut like that. You take a lemon and just cut like that with a knife, you see. The upper half and the lower half, it's like that, you see. But later on, in his yoga, Sri Aurobindo found that for the higher power to work in the lower, you have to perhaps build up certain layers between the lower and the upper hemisphere. The intermediate layers between the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. Intermediate zones, intermediate layers, intermediate steps, you see. So, that was the yogic work we are doing after 1945. And the most important step which he felt was necessary for supramentalization of things on earth was to build up a spatial plane of consciousness in the transition zone between the lower hemisphere and the upper, a spatial plane, and that he calls the mind of light. That he calls the mind of light. The spatial zone between the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. So it is his creation. He has built it upon, because he found that the supramentalism directly cannot be tackled, handled by our mind, and therefore there is the intermediate plane there. Now that is why we have the race, the intermediate race we call it, between the Gnostic race and the mental race, the intermediate race governed by this mind of light. This mind of light present between the transition from the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. So that is a great yogic step, and he has done it for achieving a certain result. Now, that thing is not available in Savitri. How he has done that aspect of it, how he has built the mind of light in between these two, and what is his role, how it is going to function, how it is going to be activated by his own yogic tapasya, and how that is going to be functional in bringing out the supramental powers lower and lower. In other words, the supramental power cannot directly enter into our mind and bring about transformation. You know what it means? It cannot bring about transformation. So, the intermediate race, that is what he calls later on in his last set of articles written between February 1949 to November 1950, 8 articles which he wrote for the bulletin. There he described the mind of light and all those details there you see. Obviously, that description is not present in Savitri. So you have to really incorporate that part also in Savitri if you want to really understand. So this transition between the day and night is something which is marvelous. The yogic work which he has done, something stupendous, you see. And we really admire how systematically, how scientifically, how testing every bit of it, he is going step by step, step by step, step by step. If there has to be the action of supermind in the lower hemisphere, then something has got to be done, something has got to be done, and he keeps on doing that sort of a thing, you see. The intermediate race is therefore a necessity of that. Intermediate race does not mean that it will go and disappear, but it is the transition between the supramental and the overmental which will hold the powers of supermind actuating in the cosmic work. Powers of supermind actuating in the cosmic work, you see. So now this cosmic work is what is going. So that description is not there well, but he has left enough details in his prose writing. Those last 8 articles, absolutely marvelous, you see. Now, I did not tell you this last time. It does not mean that it didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me also that we had to see the transition between the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. It is not just like that. There are layers and layers to be built up between the two, and that is what. In fact, if we redo Savitri, maybe many more details will come out like that. I don't know. See, what I was trying to say was that this, even the idea of overmind and the planes of mind, higher mind, illumined mind, intuition, overmind, these 4 planes of mind, spiritual mind, are not present in the spiritual literature. No Indian spirituality speaks of these differently. They simply say Manomaya Purusha, mental being. But the mental being has grades like that. Nobody speaks of that. It is for the first time Sri Aurobindo speaks of our mind and the magic, the Maya, the power of our mind to create multiplicity. It is for the first time he is explicitly stating all those details there, you see. So now, adding those 4 planes in his yogic philosophy, he has gone further up. He has added in his occult yogic working the mind of light in between. What that mind of light will do, it will prepare the new race. It will prepare the new race. The problem of food, for instance, the problem of material body, all those things are important. You see, our physical body will not be able to take immediately the supramental food, for instance, how it will survive. It has to operate on a physical plane. So that is the work which is going on in the intermediate zone between the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere, mind of light. So those things will come later on when Sri Aurobindo says that on one occasion Amalkiran asked some question, and then he said, maybe Savitri will grow into 50,000 lines, not 25,000 lines, 50,000 lines, you see. Now, so all that 50,000 lines, we have only half of it here. So not that he has kept his knowledge back, but perhaps we are not in a state to receive that knowledge yet. How the supramentalization will work here, how it will bring about the play of Krishna and Kali in the working of cosmic details here, you see. Those are the things which will come in the remaining 25,000 lines of Savitri, you see. So, if at all you want to say, in a very crude way, what we have got here is Savitri describing the lower hemisphere, the Savitri describing the upper hemisphere of all those supramentalizations and all that is yet to come. Yet to come. Where day and night had wedded and were one, it was a tract of dim and shifting rays. Obviously now, see, he is describing now the lower part, the apparatus, the domain of ignorance, from nations to ignorance, and then from knowledge and higher knowledge, like that, you see. It was a tract of dim, shifting, parting life's sentient flow from thoughts self-poised, parting, talking, life's sense, spontaneous, flow, anapist, from thoughts. I am self-poised. I will call it self-poised, not self-poised, self-poised. I am. So that's the scanning of this line. Trochee, spontaneous, anapist, I am. A coalition of uncertainties. So naturally now it's a coalition of uncertainties, you see, because it is a dim light, you see. There exercise uneasy government on a ground reserved for doubt and reason. So as if it has been reserved purposely for doubting and guessing, you see, the lower part of it, because it is a word of ignorance, you see. A rendezvous of knowledge with ignorance. Rendezvous of knowledge with ignorance. That is where the day and night meet. Knowledge, day, ignorance, night. So they are going to meet here, you see. At its low extremity, held difficult sway, a mind that hardly saw and slowly found. At the bottom of this rendezvous, down below, there is a mind which hardly sees anything. Small mind, petty mind, small mind, you see. And slowly find, that is what we are doing, discovering. Well, there has certainly been an advance in our mental capacities, intelligence, our functioning of mind and intellect. They are definitely grown over the course of time. Starting from Plato to this present day, the powers of intuition are also entering. Slowly found its nature to our earthly nature grows, obviously, and kin to our precarious mortal thought, precarious, uncertain again, that looks from soil to sky and sky to soil. So it looks up, it looks down below also. That is what happens in our case also. Soil, but knows not the below nor the beyond. At the lower extremity, that mind is struggling. It is looking up, it is looking down also. But then it does not know what it is looking at. It certainly doesn't have any idea of the beyond. It doesn't have even the idea of what is down below, you see. Mind knows only small segment of the whole thing, you see. It only sends itself and outward things. That is the capacity, that is the, well, in a certain sense it is a gain, but that gain is of a very limited kind, yeah.
Where is the limit between lower hemisphere
Between
lower hemisphere
and the upper hemisphere?
What is the limit?
Intermediate zone.
Is it mind, human mind?
No, you see, upper hemisphere is the transcendent.
Oh, Satchitananda.
Upper hemisphere is the transcendent. The lower hemisphere is the cosmic.
Okay. Include our mind
Yeah.
and all.
Yeah, down below. The lower hemisphere is the cosmic. The upper hemisphere is the transcendent. In fact,
In between you have Vijnana,
so between these two,
Supermind.
is never known, never explored, never thought of. But Shivananda found it necessary to build up layers between the two. It is not simply cut up paste like that and, well, this is upper hemisphere and this is lower hemisphere. But then there are grades also which are transiting from the lower to the upper or from the upper to the lower, you see.
So even spiritual mind
Spiritual mind is a part of ignorance.
Okay.
Spiritual mind all the way up to over mind is a part of great cosmic ignorance.
Even our mind.
Now the true knowledge begins with the mind of light.
Oh. Mind of light is without duality?
Mind of light is between the two.
Yeah, but does it have a duality?
It may have, so that has not been explored. It may have. Yeah. So in fact those details are not given. He has simply now established a new layer of consciousness between the two hemispheres for transiting from the upper to the lower. You see, direct supramentalization is not possible. Therefore, you have to build up something in between. Now, of course, you can always ask a question, does that mean that the intermediate rays, the appearance of intermediate rays, would it that mean that the true supramentalization is delayed?
Delayed.
Is put off? Is taken, is delayed, is a matter of further future.
You have to go through all the stages.
Maybe, may not be, you can't say.
It's a process.
It is not, I will not say that. It is a necessity for certain thing to happen. So it means that we are kind of impatient. The intermediate race does not mean that Shivananda's work is a failure. Shivananda has been talking of the Gnostic race. The intermediate race does not mean that it is lacking the full thrust of his yoga. It does not mean that thing at all, you see. The work is going on. Maybe we don't know tomorrow how things are happening in the immediate zone. That is what now they are doing in the subtle world. The mother and Shivananda, they are working constantly there. Maybe in between they will build up many other ladders, many other steps also. We don't know. Because the transition from the higher to the lower cannot be abrupt. Cannot be abrupt. The physical, see, if you want to build up certain centers of activity within the spirit, you have to build up those things first up there, then they can get translated here. See.
So can we say that mind of light is above all mind?
Yes.
Surely, it is definitely, because it is a part of the supreme, of the transcendent, of supermind itself. But it is below the physical mind.
What? Below? What? Why?
Below the physical mind in the sense that its function is operating. Where is the mind of located? Below the physical mind. It is from there.
Mind of life.
Physical mind, yeah, our mind.
The mind of life is below the physical mind.
In the hierarchy of planes, if in the hierarchy of planes, where you locate the plane of mind of light? Mind of light is the power of the supermind itself. but it is located below the physical mind because it is there that it has to work.
Oh. And it has to come from below.
Yeah, physical mind, mind of the physics, of matter, mind of matter, mind of matter.
It has to come
Because it
from
is, yeah, it is there, it has to work.
It is not spiritual.
Yeah. It is there, it has to. It is the mind of matter which is open to the supramental light and force. So it is working from below there. So it has to be located here so that it starts working. But it is able to receive directly the supramental light and force.
That's why we have all this upheaval
Yeah.
globally now.
Yeah. It only sensed itself and outward things. Sensed. Well, mind is the fifth sense, sixth sense. We have got five senses. Mind has the sixth sense. Therefore, it sensed itself. He has used appropriately, very, in the occult logic, the correct phrase, sense itself. This was the first means of slow ascent. The lower mind. This is the mental mind, not the physical mind. This was the first means of our slow ascent. Slow ascent. Why slow? Slow evolution is a phrase which appears repeatedly in Savitri. Slow evolution. Slow evolution. Repeatedly appears in Savitri. Slow. Because every detail has to be taken care of. Nothing should be missed. Every detail should be taken care of. Therefore, slow evolution, slow ascent. You have to climb up gradually. And it is a difficult ascent also. You see, climbing from the lower mind all the way up to upper mind is a big journey. See, we are hardly at the level of rational mind. But above the rational mind, there are the grades of spiritual mind. See? And how many of us have that inspiration, that imagination, that intuition of higher planes? Very few here and there. From the half conscience of the animal soul, living in a crowded press of shape event, in a realm it cannot understand, nor change. It, that lower mind, that mind, what is describing here, no? Mind that hardly saw, that it stands for that mind. This was the slow ascent from the half conscience of the animal soul, living in a crowded press of shape event, in a realm it cannot understand, not change. Obviously, because its scope is very small, its vision is very limited. Only it sees and acts in a given scene. Given scene. Well, that is a gain. That is a definitely gain, because before that there was not even a seeing, and feels and joys and sorrows for a while, and feels and joys and sorrows for a while. Now these feels, joys, sorrows, they are verbs. You see. It feels, it joys, it sorrows for a while. All intransitive verbs. It feels, it joys, it sorrows. And feels I am, and joys I am, and sorrow I am, rose for. Correct. A while I am. Sorrow, rose for. The ideas that drive the obscure embodied spirit. Obscure embodied spirit. The spirit has taken this obscure form here. Now, who is driving that mind with a certain idea? Idea that drives the obscure embodied spirit along the roads of suffering and desire. In a world that struggles to discover truth, found here their power to be and nature force. So, with this mind, this is again that it has found their power of these discoveries, ideas. There stands for ideas. Their tribes found here their power to be. That is the whole thing, to be. The idea. And nature folds. Here are divided the forms of an ignorant life. Let's see the empiric fact and settled law. Labors for the hour and not for eternity. Well, perhaps it is a wrong claim that they should work, they should labor for eternity, because after all it is a small mind. It should return and trace its gain to meet the moment's call, the immediate. That is what it calls. That is what we call pragmatism. Immediate gain. We don't see the far future, the consequences of our acts. We see in terms of immediate gain. Let me grab. If I can grab and get something, is enough. But what are going to be the consequences of grab? That we never bother. You see. And trace is gain to me the moment's call. The slow process of material mind. Slow process again. Slow. Earlier we have got the slow, now here again. Slow process of material mind, the physical mind. Slow process of material mind. We serve the body, it should rule and use. Well, it is certainly this mind, the physical mind, is serving the purpose of the body. It is, but it cannot rule and it cannot use. We serve the body, it should rule, but it cannot. It has not that capacity. And needs to lean upon erring sin. It is by making a mistake that we make gradual progress. By committing a mistake, we make gradual progress. We learn by mistakes. And we progress by mistake. Erring sin was born in that luminous obscurity. Luminous obscurity. What an oxymoron. Luminous obscurity, you see. Erring sense, luminous obscurity. In fact, all our senses are erring senses. The knowledge we get from our senses, it's not an absolute knowledge at all. It is contextual knowledge. It is contextual knowledge. Was born in that luminous obscurity, advancing tardily from a limping start. Clutching hypothesis upon argument. Well, that is what our mind, our intellect does. You build up hypothesis upon hypothesis and then make a progress. That is in fact how science has progressed. Keep on building hypothesis. Well, it has certainly brought certain gains. But then ultimately the whole process is clutching hypothesis upon argument. You see. Throwing its theories as certitude. At every moment you build up a hypothesis. You think that it is a certitude. It is scientific discovery, scientific theories. We always think that they are certitudes, but they are passing truths. They are not absolute, you see. We are building up hypothesis upon hypothesis. We had Newton, we had this, we had that. Constantly we are making progress, all right. But then all the while, the entire sequence simply shows that we are making progress by building hypothesis upon hypothesis. Throwing its theory is a certitude. It reasons from the half-known to the unknown. We extrapolate. We interpolate also, but we extrapolate to the unknown. Well, it might be like that, it might be like that. You see. So this is a kind of a reflection of our scientific approach towards things. Ever constructing its frail house of thought. Well, that house is not solid at all. It can crumble any moment. Ever undoing the web that it has spun. Well, this is exactly what happened. Scientific theories have come, they had worked, but then again you discard them and build up something else. You had Newton's physics, you had quantum mechanics, you got relativity, all these things keep on happening. even in microbiology now, the kind of advances which are being made, constantly we are building up hypothesis upon hypothesis, you see, ever undoing the web that it has spun at twilight stage. So therefore, the person who is doing this thing is at twilight stage. He is in search of something. He is seeing certain things, but he is seeing everything in a twilight, half light, whose shadow seems to him self, moving from minute to brief, minute lives, moving from minute to brief, minute lives. It is not minute, moving from minute to brief minute lives. It is minute to minute. Minute, mid of 60 seconds. It is not that. Minute, small, bit, layer by layer. So moving, Trochee, from minute, from May, period, nute to Trochee, brief May, Trochee, nute lives, spondy, last is spondy. In the case of minute, the stress is on minute. In the case of minute, the stress is on minute. A king dependent on his satellite. Well, this is what happens. A king dependent upon his satellite. Sign the decrees of ignorant ministers. Well, this is what our mind does, you see, our actions are. A judge in half possession of his proofs. He has not complete proofs with him, all the arguments are not there with him at all the data is not there, but then he passes judgments. Well, that's what happens in our courts. A judge in half possession of his proofs. A voice clement of uncertainties postulate. A voice clement of uncertainties postulates. Uncertainties postulate. That is a direct reference to the uncertainty principle of Heisenberg, given in 1926. Actually, this phrase, uncertainty, appears a number of times in Savitri, later on also. 71.27, for instance. 71.27, uncertainties postulate. Got it? Got it? Yes. So it appears twice in Savitri. Uncertainties postulate. It is a direct reference to uncertain principle of physics. Now, it has become such a sacrosanct law of quantum mechanics, the uncertainty principle. The uncertainty principle is such a law, sacrosanct law, absolute law. It must obey the laws of physics, must go through this uncertainty principle, you see. That you cannot have complete knowledge simultaneously of all the parameters of physics. You cannot measure, for instance, the position and momentum of a particle to any degree of certainty simultaneously. If you want to get more and more precision about the position, for instance, then that will be at the cost of momentum. If you want to measure the momentum more and more accurately, it will be at the cost of its position. That is what the uncertainty principle is. And that is tied by Planck's constant h. Planck's constant h, you see, it ties with that, you see. See, for instance, you want to measure whether this particle is present here or not accurately. So what do? You take a sharper and sharper light, beam of light, of a smaller and smaller wavelength, so that you can measure its position accurately. But the moment you put that light, it imparts a certain degree of momentum to it. It interferes with the position of that thing, and the momentum of the particle is lost simultaneously. Same. So that is the uncertainty principle. Now, my belief is that this is a transition phase. Alright, today it is working, quantum mechanics has done miracles, it is doing certain things, but one cannot live on the basis of uncertainty, not from a pure metaphysical or subjective point of view, but there has to be certain kind of definiteness of knowledge. Our tools, our instruments, our ways of looking at things had to change in the course of time. They may not be good enough today, that does not mean that they will not be good tomorrow. They will not be good tomorrow. They will be there, they will come out. You will be able to measure simultaneously all these parameters to the extent you want. So uncertainty principle is a pragmatism of physics at the moment. It works, we go along with that. But one did not get bound to it. It has got to change. See, the uncertainty principle, what has again done? The kind of knowledge we get from the uncertainty principle is the knowledge by chance, probability. Uncertainty principle leads to probability. Now, so uncertainty principle and probability cannot be really the absolute sense of physics, the truest way. You have certain limitations, you have accepted them provisionally, but one did not necessarily stick to them. Tomorrow they had to change, and they will change, there is no doubt about it. Because we are looking from this small little mind. If you have a greater mind, a higher intuition coming into play, it will bring another kind of a knowledge about these things. And then this uncertainty principle, this probability will disappear, you see. An architect of knowledge, not its source. This powerful bondslave of his instrument thinks his low station, nature's highest top, oblivious of his share in all things made, and haughtily humble in his own concept, in his own conceit, believes himself a spawn of matter's mud. Spawn of matter's mud. So that is what has led to uncertainty principle. What has the uncertainty principle led to? That you are a product of matter's mud. You are a product of matter's mud. That is what the uncertainty principle has led you to. Believes himself a spawn, product, manufacture of matter's mud. So that is the completest view of a materialist, that everything has come up from matter, you see. Believes himself a spawn of matter's mud and takes his own creations for his cause. What he has created, that is his cause of creation, you see. To eternal light and knowledge, meant to rise. It is meant to rise to eternal knowledge. Up from man's bare beginning is our climb. So, this uncertainty principle, etc., all right, provisionally. But what is actually meant is, we are supposed to climb to higher level. To eternal light and knowledge, we are supposed to climb. We are supposed to climb to eternal knowledge and light, not remain with the uncertainty and probability. Up from man's bare beginning, there was no thought, no mind, is our climb. So he is describing now how things will go up. Out of our heavy smallness, we must bring. Well, our birth is in the matter's mud, out of it we must grow. We must search our nature with spiritual fire, not with this mind, but with spiritual fire. We must search ourselves. We must search our nature with spiritual fire. An insect crawl preludes our glorious flight. So these are the prospects. These prospects cannot be achieved by uncertainty principle. We must search our nature with spiritual fire, not with this mind, But spiritual fire is what we have to investigate ourselves. It is that which will tell you the reality of our own existence, of our own being. What a line! We must search our nay, we must search and appear. Our nay, I am your with spirit, I am fuel, fire, and a pest. We must search our nature with spiritual fire, and insect crawl preludes our glorious flight. It is a small little seed, and we can see the seed, a huge, big banyan tree sprouting up, coming up, you see. And insects crawl, preludes our glorious flight. So we start flying in the upper skies. Our human state cradles the future God. Of course, we are not aware of it, but it is a fact. It is a fact. Our development, our progress, our constant urge to grow is towards this future God. Our psychic being will not rest content with these things. Our mortal frailty and immortal foes. Our mortal frailty and immortal foes. Now all these are opposition. Crawl, flight. Cradle, future God. Frailty to force. That is possible because if we start searching with spiritual fire. Now, this is a device. Crawl to flight, human state to future God. Oppositions. Mortality, mortal frailty to immortal force. They are oppositions. Now, these are the rhetoric devices of poetry. Rhetoric devices. You put something on the lower side, you put something on the higher side, contrast them. That is the tool rhetoric poetry utilizes. And these are good examples. Insect crawl to glorious flight. Human state to future God. Mortal frailty to immortal force. They are all rhetoric devices. So that is the beauty of Savitri. Now we have got a subsection. Square is there. It is a paragraph. Break, you see. At the glowworm. So we have described now all that thing. At the glowworm top of this pale glimmer realm. Glowworm top of this pale glimmer realm. Where dancing gamble with the native dove. Dancing gamble with the native dove. Dancing from above, down below. Down below. Native dove, down below. And held day to grow and night to fail. So this is what has happened. This little mind, this little intellect, this little pursuit has definitely helped the day to grow and night to fail. Means this is a progress in ignorance, more ignorance becoming less ignorance. More ignorance becoming less ignorance. Where dancing gamble with the native tusk. Dancing, that overmind. It is gambling, it is doing something here in the lower part. Gambling with the native dust, down below here, in ignorance. Held day to grow and night to fail. So our mind is doing something from above like that, escaping over a wide, shimmering bridge. He came to the realm of early light, escaping shimmering bridge. That is our mind bridge, shimmering bridge. Escaping over a wide and shimmering bridge, he came, Ashwapati, into a realm of early light, our mind, early light, and the regency of a half-risen sun. Regency of a half-risen sun. He is coming in the mind, our mind world, and the regency. Regency the regent who works, governs in place of a king, of a crown regent. So, who is this regent? Overmind. Who is the king? Supermind.
Where's the king?
Half reason son.
Where's the king?
No, he is not here, but there is a king for a regency.
The regency is overmind.
Regency, regent means one who works for a king, for a crown.
Okay, so that's the overmind.
Regent.
Oh,
Overmind, and the king is the supermind.
So overmind is a regent and the king is of course supermind. So basically this regent is doing some work of the king overmind. This is what he says. He rose to that thing. He came into the realm of early light, just the early light, and the regency of a half-risen sun. What a precise description also, you see. He is climbing from mind, because the crawl, etc., he has said, our human frailty, all that he has described no earlier. Our mortal frailty to immortal pole, human state to future God, crawl to glorious flight. With all that, where is he come? He is coming now to the half-risen sun, to our mind endpoint. He came into the realm of early light and the regency of a half-risen sun. Out of his rays is of that half-risen sun of our mind. Our mind full or was born. So our mind, the mental mind, Manomaya Purusha, is the product of this over mind working.
full,
No, its rays,
full orb is spiritual mind.
no,
Uh,
no.
You see, out of his ray, our minds, our physical mind, Manomaya Purusha, what we are,
Physical mind.
And
Full orb.
its ray,
Is?
our mind.
mind, the sun, half-risen sun.
Yeah,
He's a
Of his rays, half-risen sun. Of half-risen, that is our mind.
our mind, yeah.
Half-risen sun, our mind. Our mind means out of our mind was born. By coming down, our mind, intuition, higher luminous mind, higher mind, and then our rational mind. Our rational mind, you see. That is the regency, and this is happening because of our mind. He is the agent, he is the regent of supermind, working on behalf of our mind. Out of his rays, our minds, full orb was born. So, the genesis of our mind is actually in the our mind working. Is in the our mind working. Appointed by the spirit of the worlds. Now, this is a great phrase. Huh?
What is the spirit of the world?
Yeah, this is what we're going to see, perhaps. I don't know, but let us see. Let us try to see what that means. Spirit of the world. To mediate with the unknowing depths, a prototype of depth intelligence, half poised on equal wings of thought and doubt, toils ceaselessly with beings hidden in spirit of the worlds. Appointed by who? This overmind. Appointed by whom? By the spirit of the worlds. Supermind's power of cosmic manifestation. Supermind's power of cosmic manifestation. It is that power of cosmic manifestation which has appointed this overmind to do certain work. The spirit of the world is the cosmic manifestation. The spirit which governs the cosmic manifestation. which govern the cosmic manifestation, is the spirit of the world. How from the upper hemisphere, the lower hemisphere begins and things start operating. Who is doing it? Who is governing it? Whose appointment is that? It is the appointment of the spirit of the world. The spirit of the world belongs to Supermind for cosmic purposes, for cosmic manifestation. It projects itself into cosmic dimension, and that projection, that aspect of projection, is what the spirit of the world is, of cosmic manifestation, you see. Now, so the entire overmind and the lower mental creation, etc., 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 are the works of the spirit of the world. It has thrown itself into cosmic process, and then all these things happening. The spirit of the world is there, and then cosmic manifestation, starting from overmind down below, they are appearing here because of this appointed by the spirit of the world to mediate with the unknowing depths. Unknowing depths. For what purpose? Now, before we leave this one, spirit of the world, in the verse, this phrase, spirit of the world, is a power of cosmic manifestation of supermind. We had in the case of life, how the mind is appearing and how the mind is functioning here because of the spirit of the world. Before that, when life entered into matter and all that, who governed that process? Life had the call from the material objects and she entered into matter. But who governed that? Who governed that process of life entering into material creation? It was the world force. World force. World force 34.6. World force. You got the world force, got it? So actually, the entry of life into matter is a work of the world force. World force, Jagat Shakti. World Jagat force Shakti. Jagat Shakti. It is the work of Jagat Shakti entering into matter, and therefore life goes into matter, and then we have seen all those cantos, what has happened to that life, poor life, you see. Now, this world force in the cosmic process is actually the consciousness force of Satchidananda. Satchidananda's consciousness force is the world force in cosmic manifestation of life. Consciousness force operates in the cosmic working, consciousness force of the transcendent works in the cosmic through the world force, and that world force as life enters into matter. Now, this is a kind of a similar parallel here. Supermind projects itself as the spirit of the worlds, and through the spirit of the world, it enters into cosmic manifestation of mind, various grades of mind. Various grades of mind. So there is a complete parallelism between world force and spirit of the world. World force, Jagat Shakti, related to consciousness force of Satchidananda. Spirit of the world, Jagat Atma, world, Jagat Atma, related to supermind. Related to supermind. So basically, that is how things enter into cosmic manifestation. A certain part of the transcendent prepares itself for a certain activity as a form of life, as a form of mind, as a form of matter, and it is that which is thrown into the lower hemisphere like that. It starts working here. So the Jagat Shakti, world force, works in the domain of life, all the aspects of consciousness force. Same way, spirit of the worlds now works in the worlds of matter. Superminds appointed by the world, spirit of the world, supermind, spirit of the world. It is he who has appointed this overmind. He is the regent, supermind, overmind. For what? To mediate with the unknowing depths. How to plumb into the depths. To do something there, he has been appointed. A prototypal depth intelligence. So from that you have first depth intelligence. Half poised on equal wings of thought and doubt. Toys ceaselessly to his beings hidden and toys ceaselessly to his beings hidden and who prototypal depth intelligence, very skillful intelligence, prototype. By you produce types and then you multiply them. The multiplication is based on prototype which is made by intelligence. Intelligence is an aspect of the spirits of world in the cosmic process. Half poised on equal wings of thought and doubt. Obviously, because it is the lower part of it. So both of them are there. Toys ceaselessly twixt beings hidden ends, beings hidden end. Neither its lower end is seen, nor its upper end is seen. What Vamadeva says in the Rig Veda, here is a beast, here is a being, neither you see his head nor you see his feet. What you see is only the intermediate part of it. That is a Rigvedic description. The cosmic Purusha is all that you can see, but above the cosmic Purusha is the transcendental. Below the cosmic Purusha is the nescience, inconscience. You don't see that thing at all. Neither you see the feet nor you see the foot. Now, of course, if you don't see the ends, how do you know that there are ends? How do you know that there are ends then, you see? Toy still see it with beings, hidden ends. You are not seeing, but then there are ends. Because it is half poised. His knowledge is like that. One who has a complete knowledge, who is full of knowledge, he sees the full being. So, in comparison, what he sees, this intelligence, sees only a part of it. Neither the head nor the foot are seen by it, you see. A secrecy, because they are hidden, therefore a secrecy. A secrecy breathed in life's moving act. So you don't know what is really happening here. A covered nurse of nature's miracles. His shape lies wonders out of matter's mud. We had earlier spawned for matter's mud, but now here it has shaped lies wonders of matter's mud. Really, all these wonderful things happened. Matter was nothing, marshy only, if at all. There you have now such a variety of life forms, innumerable, countless forms, forms after form, endless form, is shaped life. Because prototype means multiplicity. Cut the pattern and shapes of things. It pitched mind's tent in the ignorant, in the vague, ignorant one. It who? That secrecy. So first we have got depth intelligence, then we have got secrecy, then comes a magician, a master magician of measure and device. Master magician of measure and device has made an eternity from recurring forms. It's quite a heavy stuff, but let's try to do something. A master magician, by magic, it appears to us magic, of course not for him, of measure and device. Now that is the key. So we have got the depth intelligence, you have got the secrecy, now you have got the intelligence, magician. What does the magician do? Measure and device. Mind is the measurer, mind is the devicer, he produces divider. Therefore, what was whole, what was total, it is producing measures, it is producing recurring forms. What was formless, how out of formless arise forms? Out of formless, how arise forms? Because of this magician who brings out measures. He wants to see this, 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 as if he is cutting that formless into forms. Cutting that formless into form. So the actual breaking up of the infinite into multiples, how the infinite has become innumerable, that was the question we were asking. How had the infinite become innumerable? It is because of this measuring mind. The power of mind is to break infinity into innumerable. Bit by bit. They may be infinite in number, but they are bit. And that is the thing which has been done by the measuring mind. Measure, he uses the word measure purposely. A master magician of measure and device. And see the meditation. Master, magician, measure and device. Mind is the one who measures. See, suppose, you have got an infinite scale. You say, you take a yardstick. This 1 yard, this is 1 meter, this is 2 meters, this is 3 meters. That is what you are measuring. You are cutting now the infinite line into bits like that, you see. Like that. You have got a total mass. You take a lump of it and say this is so many kilograms. You got a whole heap of apples. You say 20 apples, 100 apples, 1000 apples like that. You are doing now that thing by mind. Otherwise, for it, what is it? It only sees a heap of apples, you see, infinite. So the character of mind is to break, to measure, to break, to measure. In fact, that is why the infinite becomes innumerable. The timeless become hours and seconds and minutes. Time gets broken into small elements of movement. You see. Spaceless becomes spaces, realm, kingdom, provinces, shires, counties. All the things start happening because of that. It is because of mind. Otherwise, the whole land is one land. But who has built now this India and this France and this Germany and this Europe and this America? Who has? Mind. In a certain sense, you see. A master magician. He has done that thing. You see, in fact, that is a real miracle. It is a magic he has achieved. That the infinite can become innumerable. That is a great magic. Has made an eternity from recurring forms. He has given the example now. And to the wandering spectator thought, assigned a seat on the inconscient state. So the thought is wandering now. Okay, go and sit down there now on the inconscient state. So the actual multiplicity starts with the overmind. Overmind projected into the lower part as a magician is bringing about the multiplicity. So in fact, that is the whole character of multiplicity. The knowledge of multiplicity is there with overmind. But the knowledge of multiplicity is without the knowledge of unity.
Of course.
That knowledge of unity is not there. That knowledge of simultaneous knowledge of multiplicity and unity is present only in supermind. It is supermind alone which knows the infinite and the innumerable. Our mind will know only the innumerable and non-innumerable. So the knowledge of multiplicity without the knowledge of unity is the character of our mind. And that is why it is ignorance. Ignorance because it doesn't know the unity of these forms. And that has been kept back purposefully. That knowledge of unity in multiplicity has been kept back purposefully by the spirit of the world. By the spirit of the world. It has kept back purposefully because it is allowing now the multiplicity to grow by itself. You see, if it is all the while carrying the knowledge of unity, then the purpose of individuality will be lost. That I am this, I am that will be lost. In order to produce the individuality of an individual, you have to hold back the knowledge of unity. That is the magic of our mind. Magician. That is the magic of our mind, you see. A master magician of measure and device has made in eternity from recurring form and to the wandering spectator thought. So we are wandering, our thoughts are wandering around here, seeing this thing, seeing that thing. What do you see? It is okay, please go and sit down in inconscience. That you see. On earth, by the will of this arch intelligence, so you have got basically prototypal depth intelligence, you have secrecy, you have got magician, now you have got arch intelligence. Arch, he the prototypal intelligence. A bodiless energy put on matter's robe. That is the magic. How does the bodiless energy, how the formless become form? See, spiritual energy doesn't need a body necessarily, but it has to acquire a bodiless energy. Put on matter's robe, proton and photon served the imager I.
How did you learn all this, Deshpande?
How did I?
How did you learn all this?
Yes, from Savitri.
Yeah, but how do you know all this suddenly?
From Savitri, is there in Savitri.
Yeah, but how do you know, for example, this spirit of the world and all this?
Is there all in Savitri only?
We don't know. How do you find out?
That's why it is Deshpande.
No, but I want to know, how do you find out?
I tell you, Savitri gives you everything.
Gives you everything. Intuition is deeper.
That's what? That's what? Well, actually, that is exactly what we had to mean by going to Savitri. Enter in more and more, see, into his spirit, more and more into his spirit. And it starts telling you more and more of it. As I told you earlier, see, for instance, last time we did not talk of the region between the higher hemisphere and the lower hemisphere which was built by Sri Aurobindo. Well, when I was going through it again, then I thought, then what about that? The transition is not an abrupt thing, jump from one to the other. It's not you take a leap from one girl to the other girl. It's not like that. There has to be a graduality, and that graduality is what Sri Aurobindo has done by establishing grace of consciousness between the upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere, and the functional grade here is the mind of light, he calls it. We don't know how many are there here to see. So we see, it's all there. He has given us everything to us. We have to only see it. That's all.
No, that's all. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
This is a very difficult kind of a section also, but it gives you the complete argument of how the cosmic functioning started from the transcendent, when you enter to the cosmic, you have got the world force in the case of life or consciousness force. You have got the spirit of the worlds, he says, for the creative possibility of the overmind, of the supermind, you see, simultaneously going on like that. Now the whole zone, all the subsequent cantos are going to deal with this mind. It has entered into the cosmic phase, so all the aspects of mind in the cosmic dimensions will be described one by one in subsequent cantos also. Till we go to the greater knowledge in canto 15. But that also is described very briefly. Well, actually the whole thing is, when you are reading these things, don't you get an impression that as if Shivananda himself is hurrying through?
No. You think so? I don't know.
He is hurrying through in the sense that you have got spirit of the world, you have got depth intelligence, you have got secrecy, you have got magician, you have got arch intelligence. See, now he has not really described each of them in their completest, fullest form. He has only indicated, hinted, this. He has kind of catalogued them, going into the functioning and the processing of the working. So in that sense, it is a kind of a hurried description of the whole thing. But that hurried description is necessary to be there. The details will come if you do that yoga. He has shown you the process. He has shown you the landmarks of this thing. You have to enter yourself yogically into the realm and see how this magician is working. How this magician is working. How is the secrecy operating? How is the depth intelligence working? How is the spirit of the world coming into existence and doing all these things? That long how? In that sense, is not there in a hurry of the description. So one gets a kind of an impression, if you really go into the minutiae, then it looks as though, see, if I want to get a handle how the spirit of the world becomes overmind, that becomes overmind, those details are not there. They are the occult part of it. The occult part. If you start describing those things, each canto will become an epic.
Yeah, you can write so much.
Each canto will become an epic, then you see. Okay, then all right. So Shivananda was saying that maybe Savitri will grow into 50,000 lines.